You have accessed the podcast of OA, located deep within Sector 14845 and powered by the Emerald Light of Will. The podcast of OA is your guide to the Green Lantern universe. Hosted by Lanterns Myron Rumsey and Bill Giancoli, the podcast of OA begins now.
Welcome back to the podcast of OA. This is episode 111. I'm Bill Giancoli, and I'm joined with the creator and guardian of the blog of OA, Myron Rumsey. How are you doing today, Myron?
I'm doing much better than I have been, Bill. Living in the northeast part of the United States, February has not been kind. I think there's been about 3 or 4 plagues that have shifted through the area. And I know your family's been sick. My family's been sick. I was laid up in bed for, I think, 3 or 4 days, binge watching Green Lantern, the animated series, on the couch while drinking chicken soup.
No, the same. I wasn't really eating any food, though.
You had the really bad one.
Yeah, I had the really fun one. But we had plenty of Green Lanterns to keep us, company while we were all huddled inside with our families. So we have 3 Green Lanterns and the Adventures of Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz, and 3 Hal Jordans, plus some Planet of the Apes, and throwing in the mix there, which we're going to talk about in a much later episode, is the Green Lantern Star Trek crossover. So, I mean, not a bad time to be sick, I guess is what I'm getting at. Yeah, we've got a substantial backlog of comics to chat about, and plus we've got some Green Lantern casting news. I shouldn't say news; I should say rumors, because it's really not news. But we've got some rumors out there, and then we were going to record a commentary track for Green Lantern the movie right around the time we both got sick. So we've got to reschedule that too as well to get Ryan Nixon, who was an advisor on the film, is going to come down and meet us, and we're going to watch the film in a theater and record a commentary track. And here's hopefully some really neat little inside tidbits that have never been heard before. I mean, I think that's going to be really cool. I mean, for us sitting in the theater, but I think our commentary, to hear some of his insight and the things he maybe saw or knew that we were never privy to.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, so why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about Green Lanterns number 15, 16, and 17.
This is Razor, and you are listening to the blog of OA. You need to keep listening, otherwise I will track you down with all of my skill, and you will feel my wrath.
And welcome back to the podcast of OA, episode 111. And we're going to kick off our comics chat talking about Green Lanterns issues number 15, 16, and 17. And 16 and 17 is a 2-parter where Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz team up with Batman. But let's start out our conversation talking about issue number 15, which is kind of a one-off on A Day in the Life of Jessica Cruz. So Bill, what did you think about this particular issue?
It was slow. It's not. I don't think Green Lanterns has really kicked in for me. Kind of an action junkie, and the character. I'm just not buying the character. So, a character-driven issue like this is kind of lost on me a little bit. And I think I'm being fair with Green Lanterns. I think you and I were talking earlier about our feelings towards the Red Lanterns when the first Red Lanterns were coming out with Atrocitus and everything. We weren't too keen on that issue, and both of us we've talked about it in privately. Just it wasn't. It was our least favorite to read at one point, and then things kind of changed up. They took different directions with different characters. With Guy coming into the Red Lanterns, and things kind of picked up, and they took a different perspective, and we bought into that. I haven't found a different perspective on this yet that has convinced me otherwise to really even, I'm just not buying the character of Jessica Cruz. And Baz, I can to a point, I think more so than you. Is that a fair statement? I'm not going off there, right? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, Baz is okay. I just think he's redundant. He doesn't bring anything different to the table for me, but that's just my opinion.
But I guess I'm a little bit more lenient on Baz. But I would say my opinion on Baz is a little bit more lenient than yours. you say?
I would say so. I think that's accurate.
Yeah. Whereas Jessica, I think the biggest thing about Jessica and her angle, or I don't know what you would want to call it. I don't want to say hook because considering what it is, but her anxiety that she deals with, which a number of people deal with, totally get it. And I understand what they're trying to do here, but there's just some things you can or cannot buy, no matter how well written, and I can't buy this. And what I mean by I can't buy this is that it just seems, and you've made this point before, she overcomes almost the hurdle becomes the same over and over again. And no matter how great she overcomes one hurdle, it's like, okay, is this going to be the consonant rhythm to this storyline? And I haven't seen anything creative otherwise that would lead me to say, okay, yeah, she's a character I want to keep reading. She just kind of bores me. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, it just bores me. And that's a lot to say, and I don't mean to be harsh. I'm sure people do like it. Some people have really enjoyed, Jessica Cruz, and they've really enjoyed it. And that's good for them, good for the series. I mean, we support it with our dollars, and we know that we have great art. I think the art's fine. I like it. So we're getting a professional product. I think I'm just not buying Jessica Cruz. I can't take this same hurdle of this anxiety but yet is given the most powerful weapon in the universe. I don't know. It's just maybe I'm like Frank Lemonsky or whatever. Why could it be me? I'm more. I don't know.
It's interesting. I gave this issue an 8 out of 10. And I did not because it is a good Green Lantern story, but I did because I thought it was a good character story. If you take the Green Lantern elements out of it, I think for a lot of people who have anxiety disorders, this speaks to them greatly. I think it helps people like ourselves who don't suffer from anxiety. I think it helps us understand it a little bit better. And so I liked it from the perspective that I think if you know someone who has anxiety, this is a good book to share with them. And like Simon Baz was trying to reach out to Jessica in his own way, and in the end, I think he did a good job of it. I think it's good for people to use as a way to stimulate conversation. So I wouldn't say it was to me, it's not a great Green Lantern story. I wouldn't even call it a good Green Lantern story, but I think it's a good people story, if that makes sense. So if I took the Green Lantern parts out of it, I saw a lot more value to it. Like you, I struggle with Jessica can overcome great fear, but in that regard, we can all overcome great fear. What makes her more worthy of the ring than you or I? And I know that's kind of a little bit of the Frank Leminski thing you're talking about. I don't buy it from a Green Lantern perspective, and I don't mean that in a negative way, or I'm not trying to put the character down. I just don't. It's not anything I want to read about in terms of an ongoing story. It's not why I buy my comics. That said, I think it's a very human story, this particular issue, and it has merit from that standpoint. So that was how I was looking at it.
I mean, I understand your perspective as far as that goes, but I would disagree into some. I think this is a Green Lantern. I think I understand people connecting to a character of this nature. Yeah. I get it. I suffer from anxiety. It's not. I don't think it's as severe as other people's, but it comes out in certain ways. I get the whole. I'm not a big public. Being in public is not a comfortable thing for me, and it's work. Now, that being said, I'm not sitting here to say this as in, I'm as to a level of like what Jessica seems to portray in the book here. And I know there are people who are like that. But it's a hard, it's a character that you just almost can't buy in mythology or anything, because I could see if this was like, if Jessica was a brief character and this was a story or a movie that was like with a finite kind of, ending here. I could maybe buy this angle, but as an ongoing series and waiting for something of really, really epic proportions for her to overcome and understand that she can't rely on this, like, hey, these past things, or even being able just to fly with a ring. You would think, anxiety or stressful situations makes you anxious. And this ring puts her in more stressful situations than, she needs to be. Right?
Right.
I don't know.
It pushes her outside of her comfort zone.
But yet it's never good enough.
Right. I know what you mean. I find, I struggle with some people buy comics looking for relatable characters and so on. Some people look for entertainment only. Some people, for me, I'm looking for inspirational characters, or aspirational characters is probably the better choice of words. And I'm looking for entertainment. And so that's where I kind of run into it is I'm not getting it out of this series. But I think that issue by itself, if you look at it as a writer tackling a social, personal issue and take the Green Lantern out of it, to me, that's how it became a better book. It made it easier for me to read it when I stopped and said, okay, this has very little Green Lantern in it, really, other than showing Jessica fighting a bear, right, and sparring with a bear and those kind of things, showing how that helps her cope a little bit.
Which I thought was a really cool way to use the ring.
Yeah.
To a sparring partner. I think I guess looking from your point of view a little bit, I see it as, okay, yes, it's a professional piece of work. It's it's well written structurally, what's going on. I think he does a good job of at least giving, kind of having the emotion of anxiety come over you,
right,
with the way it's written and the style in which it's presented. Mm-hmm. They do a good job. That being said, if you told me that I would not be upset if I never had to read this again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's not. I don't feel like it's going to be any crucial to the Green Lantern storyline overall. Just wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah. And I don't know. It bothered me a little bit to see the Green Lanterns fighting the giant monster at the beginning and really doing a good job of handling the monster, and then they perform like idiots when it comes to fighting this guy with spurs and a 6-gun. It threw me off a little bit there. And you see things like that, or when Batman asks for help, it just seems kind of contrived a way to take away from the characterization work. And I guess it's okay in the end. But anyway, shifting gears to the Batman story.
Yes.
Do you want me to start first, or would you like to go first on this one?
I don't know. I kind of want to hear your thoughts, because I feel like I may have beaten up on the last issue. So
the Batman two-parter. I'm not sure where to begin. I had, whenever a writer brings a character like Batman in particular, Batman team-ups are either really good or they're really not good. And the problem they run into when they're not good is that the writer has a tendency to weaken or dumb down or depower the stronger characters to make Batman look good. And this is clearly a case where Batman shows up and they're trying to deal with the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow has somehow managed to weaponize the fear energy and embed it in videos on the internet as a way to get people to rise up. And basically he's not capable of feeling anything except for fear, and he's like a junkie who needs a bigger high, and this is his way to get the bigger high. And Batman shows up and there's a scene in the second part where the Scarecrow character, he sends this big fear wave out, and it hits Simon and Jessica and Batman. And Jessica and Simon, who are chosen because they can overcome fear, are standing there frozen in fear while Batman is not even breaking a sweat. And things like that just really bugged the heck out of me. And so I really had a lot of difficulty with this two-parter, because it just seemed like the Green Lanterns were being made to look really stupid to make Batman look like he's better than he is, or more powerful than he is, or more capable than he is. Batman should have been overcome with fear just like they could. And it would have been, I think, a better moment for Jessica and Baz to show their worth. This was like Jessica and Simon being guest stars in a Batman story than the other way around. So I had some problems from that perspective. But then, the whole... When you get done with the end of the story, Batman could have handled this all by himself. He didn't need Simon and Jessica. The whole point of the story was to have Batman confront Simon Baz about the gun, and for Simon Baz to have, like Jessica just had, to have a special moment where he realizes he doesn't need this anymore. It's a crutch, and he's going to be he's going to throw the gun away. And it was just, I don't know, it just seemed very contrived and forced. And, we had to come up with a moment where the gun was going to fail him, and he would then learn his lesson and then have his aha moment and throw the gun away. Now, if you've been reading anything with Simon Baz, like Lost Army and Edge of Oblivion, he'd already ditched the gun. They brought the gun back into it for some reason that I can't quite fathom. But I don't know if it's to write this Batman two-parter or what. But you have this whole story. It just I don't know. I had a real difficult time with this, enjoying it at all, because it just seemed like Simon and Jessica were guest stars in their own book, and Batman was made to look much better than he needed to. And the whole gun thing, it was like an after-school special to me. And so I really didn't get a whole lot.
I mean, that
out of
was
it.
kind of the line at the end there,
Yeah, the whole thing where
the power to believe was always in you.
yeah, exactly. It isn't that you don't think the gun is going to fail; it's that you're going to fail. The ring isn't going to fail you; you're going to fail the ring. And I don't know. It just seems so paint by numbers to me.
Well, and we've talked about this before, and I think. I'm trying to guess what the audience is for the Green Lanterns. Are we writing this for more sophisticated readers with dealing with anxiety? And that seems much more mature, the way, especially where they are handling some of it, and talking about her friends being murdered and stuff like that. So it seems like a much more mature. But then I get this young adult feel to it, or even teenage, like you were saying, after school special feel to it as well. So is it trying to be family friendly? And I don't know if I can. So you end up with some of these moments where you're like, geez, that you don't buy or you're not into. I don't know about you. I'm turned off of some of the things that they do.
Yeah, I think honestly that the Green Lanterns is being written for a new audience. This is for the person who's not a Green Lantern fan necessarily. I think that's. I'm not saying Green Lantern fans don't buy it. I'm sure they do. But what I'm saying is I think it's meant as the entry-level book, is a way for people to get exposed to the larger universe. And where I struggle with that notion is that there are so many things that are done out of continuity, or the whole thing with Simon and the gun to his head. Now the rings have a protective feature in them. That it would have been nothing for him to have snapped his shield on, and the ring would have done it kind of involuntarily to protect him from a gun bullet. So this whole forced drama is just like it's based on not knowing the mythology. Now, not to mention how many times your ordinary average person has been able to knock them both down. Right. Or it takes two Green Lanterns to put out a house fire.
This guy with a bat, he has a bat and everything, but if you're going to have trouble with a bat and then you're like, well, didn't you just take on Atrocitus?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I'm all about sucker punches, but there's a point where you got to be like, I see, and that's what I'm talking about. That's sometimes where I think I'm conflicted, and I'm like, that might go for a younger audience, but I'm 40 going on 18, and I can tell you. But do you see what I'm saying? There's a discrepancy sometimes, I feel, in like who's the reader. I mean, you got Alfred standing over him with a gun pointed to his head, screaming, which is kind of intense. But then you're like, wow, these two guys just got like with a baseball bat. This guy was able to knock them both out of the way. Two Green Lanterns who fight. Right. It's just it's tough.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And the one thing that I thought about through all three of these issues was we just ended this whole Phantom Lantern story with Volthoom taking over Rami, and we got through 3 issues with nothing about him until the very end, and it's like, oh yeah, there's this other threat out there. It just seemed like such an awkward. It was like, we're driving down this highway and this is what's next, and suddenly we pulled off to the side of the road for these other 3 issues, and now we're back on again. It just seemed like a weird detour,
right?
From an overall narrative sense,
right? Well, Batman's kind of brought in as the, when something's having a little trouble, sometimes you get that one character in, everybody applauds for when they walk through the door.
Yeah. It's usually you. No,
yeah. Well, it's like Batman. You got, he walks in and everybody's like, oh, he's gonna do his Batman thing. He's gonna scowl or make some dry wisecrack to one of these guys, and then he's gonna get out of there.
Well, and I recently did an article where I was looking at the sales numbers, and one of the things that I was commenting on was that the Rebirth sales have dropped off faster than the New 52 sales have. And I realized New 52 was done as a huge relaunch, and so it should have sustained itself longer. But at the same time, everybody's, applauding how the Rebirth books have been selling. But the Green Lantern family of books has actually dropped to the point at which it did, right before the Sinestro book launched. It dropped to that point in sales on a monthly basis. And it's not, it's not anemic, and neither book is in jeopardy of being canceled, but I don't think either book has performed as well necessarily as they thought it would. I mean, we're selling numbers right now for December 2016 was the last time I had sales numbers when I did this article. It was selling at the same number of books we sold in October of 2013. Now, there were spikes after that, like during Future's End and those kind of things. But other than that, we're right back where we were, so we haven't really gained anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, obviously we have mixed opinions about the Green Lantern's book, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. Sometimes I worry about whether people who are listening to the show are like, I'm tired of listening to you guys complain about it. So, I'll ask you a pointed question. Do you think we should continue to review the series?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it's part of the Green Lantern mythology.
Red Lanterns.
That's true. I'm hoping it will get better, at least in the kind of book I want to see. But I honestly don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see. We'll see.
Dude, I mean, I don't think at once have we ever said. Oh well, no. Let me take that back. I don't think you have ever said that you would like to see this. You don't want to see this fail. You don't want to see it did not get printed anymore. But that doesn't mean you don't have a certain level of what you would like to see, or what you like.
Yeah. I certainly have a very strong opinion of it, and I don't deny that. I love the mythology and I love the lore. This is my thing. Obviously we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't my thing. But I struggle with this series, not as much as I struggle with Larfleeze. I mean, Larfleeze, I dropped, I think, 2 issues in or 3 issues in, and I'm not at that point yet. I'm interested in the things with Volthoom and that part. That's what is getting me to come back to this book. It could star any other 2 Green Lanterns, and I'd still be buying it. So it isn't, I'm not buying it for Baz and Cruz. I'm buying it for the mythology and the fact that people are going to come to the blog of OA looking for reviews because it's a reviews and news site. So, how can I not, buy
right.
a book with Green Lantern on the cover?
And if anybody wants to argue that Green Lanterns is a great comic and we're missing the point or whatever, write a review.
Right. And that said, we'll segue into listener feedback that talks about this very subject. All right. So we'll be back in just a few with some words from our not advertisers. All right.
This is Giancarlo Volpe, producer of Green Lantern, the animated series, and you're listening to the podcast of OA.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast of OA, and we have some listener feedback. So the first thing we've got is an email from Mike Langford, and Mike writes, "Hey guys, first-time writer to your show. Thought I would make it a point to listen to the podcast just as soon as it's out. I have just read Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps and Green Lanterns recently, and I must say I love them. It's nice to see a book every once in a while just tell a nice story and use it for some type of character development." So obviously he's talking about Green Lanterns number 15. I have to say that when Simon Baz first came around, I thought it was just some type of PC bullcrap to appease a small minority. Yeah, it was. The writers have since taken the character and developed him more. With Jessica, I thought the same, but I was much less guarded with her. That being said, both characters are growing on me, and I would like to see them progress more. In regards to Jessica, some may say that she is scared all the time and that doesn't deserve the ring, but I would argue that due to her anxiety, it takes tremendous willpower for her to be the hero that she desperately wants to be. I look forward to her overcoming her obstacles in the future. Maybe I'll write again in the future. So, Bill, what do you have to say?
Okay, I understand. But here's my argument with Jessica needing great will to overcome overcome her anxiety. But then it doesn't reflect in her, will within her own power. I guess is what I'm saying is like there's no output on that Green Lantern. It's not like she's like overly powerful making these constructs or lack of making constructs, but just these really powerful rays. I think of like Cyclops without the visor.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's taking her this much willpower to get over her anxiety, but she can't. It doesn't seem to come out with the ring. That would be more interesting to me if that was the case, but it's not. So what you're saying, let me paraphrase it to make sure I understand it. So what you're saying is that the willpower that she uses to overcome her anxiety should then mean that when she uses her ring, she's more powerful than normal, than a regular Green Lantern might be, because she's got so much willpower to overcome her fears. Is that kind of what you're alluding to? Is that yes, and she might not know how to control it.
Right, gotcha. Okay, yeah, that would be an interesting take on it. If she couldn't control her ring because it was so powerful, because she had so much willpower that it was a struggle for her to contain it.
And that would make me like, oh, okay, yeah, she's not only that, but she's dangerous.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I would understand that will, that part of her, as what Mike's mentioning, is the will to overcome her fears. But it's not being reflected anywhere else.
Gotcha.
And that's where I would argue that point with Mike. And thank you for paraphrasing, because I didn't know where I was going there for a second.
That's my job.
But, that's your job. But the Simon Baz thing, I mean, I just think my only knock on Simon Baz is I think it's like we already have 3 Earth Lanterns. 4 Earth Lanterns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think originally when Simon Baz was first introduced, there was a character story there that was interesting, and they haven't dipped into it enough. I think Simon Baz has been a guest star in his own book. So
I mean, is it his book, or isn't it supposed to be shared time?
It's a shared book, but I mean, it's his book too. But up until this most recent story, he's kind of been the second fiddle all the way through. So we haven't, Humphreys hasn't done much with Simon other than make him look like a jerk in the beginning, and now he's a little more understanding, and now he's gotten rid of the gun. So we've got those 3 little beats, but I don't think there was as much character development there than there was in his short appearance in the main Green Lantern title when Jeff Johns was writing it. When Jeff went to great lengths to talk about how Simon looked at the ring differently, and he was able to heal with it. Those kind of things. He was able to do things that the ring wasn't able to do because he didn't see the limitations. You don't really see that here. I think Sam Humphries has kind of done Simon Baz a little bit of a disservice because he hasn't gotten the character treatment. They made him look bad in the beginning because they needed to make Jessica look good, and so you needed Simon to be the bad guy for her to be elevated in readers' eyes and for them to sympathize for her. And I think it's I don't know, I could take or leave Baz. I'm at that point of which this many Green Lanterns from the same planet in our sector is hard to swallow, not only being from the same hemisphere but also being from the same country. So how many do we need, is where I get to.
Yeah, but that's my only knock. I don't know. You can never say whether or not it was for PC reasons or whatever. I don't know. I think the gun was a bunch of bull crap, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it was ridiculous. But anyway, that said, Mike, thank you for the email. We obviously don't necessarily see eye to eye with Jessica and Simon, but that's the great thing about having this kind of a forum where we can share our opinions and everybody's got their own ideas about what they want to see, and some people are really liking it. I'm not knocking that.
Yeah. And Mike's not wrong.
No, not at all. Nobody's wrong.
Mike's right. Yeah.
But anyway, the next thing up, we've got a voicemail. So we'll pause here for a second and let you listen to that, and then we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Dean Anderson from Tennessee, and I just wanted to give some quick feedback. I just recently owned your show. I just recently got back into comic books. I'll be turning 50 in less than a month, and I've been reading comics off and on since I was 10 years old, but I was out of it for a long time. Rebirth brought me back in. I really appreciate you giving your opinions, and I respect your differences of opinions. I happen to like Jessica Cruz, and I think the anxiety and the issues that she's dealing with makes her more human, and I actually appreciate that. Again, I respect your opinion, and I appreciate the fact that you can give a differing opinion without an attitude, so to speak. Enjoying the show. Keep it up. Thanks a lot.
Well, Dean, thank you very much for the voicemail. I think that's great that Rebirth has brought you back in. Welcome back to the fold of comics and everything of that nature. So, I think we're going to have to disagree. I think our disagreement, there's nothing that you can base this on other than I think you either buy the character or you don't buy the character. You either really relate for some reason or that character connects to you. And it's almost like having different opinions on music at this point. I think some people hear the rhythm of Jessica and some people don't. And I think, when you ask me that very, very straight question about should we continue or should you continue reviewing Green Lanterns, my answer is yes. You still read, why not? There's maybe one day they take a turn that it clicks for you and you start seeing, Jessica Cruz in a whole different light. And so to that regard, Myron, and what I'm saying to Dean is, it's okay to disagree. There's no reason not to disagree. And we may have strong opinions about how we feel about Green Lanterns, but that doesn't mean that nobody should go out to read it or that we don't have a right to continue to read it.
Right. You like what you like, and I had somebody on Twitter say, well, why are you writing the reviews of this book and supporting it if you don't like it? And, again, I'll repeat what I said earlier. People come to my site looking for reviews and news and commentary and those kind of things. And so that's why I do it. Movie reviewers don't necessarily like every movie they review, but they still review them. And that's kind of where I see it. But, nobody's right, nobody's wrong. I think everybody's got the entitlement to have their opinion. And if Jessica resonates with Dean, and Dean, we're assuming it says your name is Dean because it got a little choppy there when you said your name, so we're calling you Dean. You may not be Dean, but that's what we're calling you for the sake of the show.
Sorry, Dean.
But I think it's great. If that's what brings you back into the fold and makes you interested in reading comics again, I think that's great. I hope you also go back and check out some of the stuff that when it came out during the Jeff Johns era. I'm not sure if you were reading then or not, but you and I are in the same age bracket, and it's sometimes hard to get back into this hobby once you leave it. So if this has been your entry point and it gets you interested and committed to reading comics again, more power to it, and congratulations for jumping back into comics reading, because I think there's so many different things out there right now that are so well written. There's something out there for everybody. But at any rate, thanks, folks, for your commentary, your emails, using the Contact Me form on the website, and using the Skype voice line. And if you would like to call and leave a voicemail, we'd love to hear from you. The voicemail line is 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362, and that'll let you leave about a 2-minute voicemail, and then it'll cut you off because Google Voice does have a time limit. But at any rate, we'd love to hear from you. So let's take a quick break, and we want to talk a little bit about Green Lantern movie casting rumors and some of the things that are floating out on the internet. All right, so we'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned.
What up, dweebs? This is Guy Gardner. You're listening to the podcast of OA.
Okay, so Myron, there's some casting rumors about Green Lantern, who's going to play him. Correct me if I'm wrong. I heard Armie Hammer, but we've heard everything from Chris Pine to Woody Harrelson to... No, I don't know about Woody Harrelson. But there's been plenty of rumors out there. I think most of the rumors have been just hopes and dreams, but I don't know. Have you heard anything a little more concrete?
Well, there have been a couple of different stories out there, and I want to start with the most recent thing, and it's actually not new news. It was said a while ago, but The Wrap had said that it was confirmed that a Green Lantern was going to be in Justice League. And originally, I had heard through Humberto Gonzalez, who does reporting for The Wrap now. He was saying to me, not to me personally, but to answering a question I had asked him on a YouTube channel that he has, he responded to a tweet where I asked him what he knew about the Green Lantern being in Justice League, and he said he was pretty sure you could take it to the bank, and then he said he thought it would be Hal. Well, recently on Periscope, he kind of recanted a little bit, and he just said, there's, what's confirmed that a Green Lantern will be in it. I can't remember his name, and he couldn't pronounce it, which to me says, aha, it's an alien, right? So it's an alien Green Lantern. What would be the logical choice? Abin Sur, wouldn't it? If you end the Justice League movie with Abin Sur coming to Earth, warning about Darkseid, and he dies, and the ring goes off and finds Hal or whatever, there's your origin story in a real nutshell. It could be the credits scene, for all we know. You could see the ring fly off, and then in the mid-credits scene, see it find Hal, which explains why we don't have casting news. But I take it all with a grain of salt. I mean, the difference between Humberto Gonzalez reporting things on his own versus reporting through The Wrap is that The Wrap is a Hollywood outlet, a media outlet. So in order for things to be released through them, it has to be verified. They have a reputation to uphold. Humberto can post rumors of it on his own, but they don't necessarily have legs to them. So that being said, I give a little more credit to what he said recently, because he was confirming a story that The Wrap published about there being a Green Lantern in Justice League. I don't think it's a big role. I think, like I said earlier, it's a case of Green Lantern dies, the ring goes to Hal, or ring goes to John, whatever. But the other thing that happened was that there was a leak about more news on casting, and that there hasn't necessarily been any negotiations with the actors, but that Warner Brothers has in their mind a short list of actors that they consider for the role, which is a lot different. These actors may not have even been approached yet. But one of the names that was thrown around was Armie Hammer, which is interesting because on Twitter, back when Joe Manganiello got cast as Deathstroke, before that was announced, Jeff Johns followed Joe Manganiello, and Joe Manganiello followed Jeff Johns back. So lo and behold, Jeff Johns one day started following Armie Hammer, and Hammer started following Jeff Johns, and there was a little bit of Twitter trolling out there. So interesting that his name is being connected on the short list, considering those things. And, Armie Hammer has some history with Henry Cavill. They did the 2015 Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie, and the movie was not that good, from what I understand, but that they had really good chemistry. So, I could see him being one of the guys named. Another name that was thrown on was Bradley Cooper. Well, Bradley Cooper does the voice of Rocket Raccoon. I don't know whether Marvel has the same contractual stipulations that they do with their live action actors, but with Bradley Cooper doing Rocket Raccoon, I doubt it. It's interesting, though, that his name is being connected with Green Lantern because he was one of the finalists for the 2011 movie. He messed up. He went to his audition, and he couldn't get over the Christian Bale Batman thing, so he did his audition for Hal Jordan doing a Batman voice. And so that's kind of how he lost.
I don't know.
The
Did
role.
he mess up though, or
I don't know. But it was interesting that his name was brought back into the whole thing again about that. Another one was Jake Gyllenhaal, which it's interesting because he was offered the role of Rick Flag in Suicide Squad, or excuse me, the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad. And
yes, Oscar winning.
And he's been a fan favorite for a while, so his name was mentioned. Joel McHale's name was listed, and I was like, then now the credibility took a nosedive. But then it also mentioned Tom Cruise as a potential Hal Jordan, and I was like, well, yeah, okay, he's in great shape for 54. But to me, he's
Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise makes quality stuff.
I know of it.
He's a loony bin, but he does a great job. I like his movies.
I'm a level 10 Green Lantern.
Yeah.
But I think he's, personally, in my opinion, I think he's too old. I'd rather see a late 20s, early 30s Hal, not a 50s Hal. But that's just my opinion.
With CG now, they can all look young.
They can look young. And then the last name, one of the last names mentioned was Ryan Reynolds as Hal. And I was like, okay. Now, the credibility is gone down the tubes because Ryan has, for all the problems that movie had, Ryan Reynolds really wasn't one of them. But I don't think he wants to revisit the role, simply because he's gone on record as saying that after he did that movie, he was almost unhireable. So I don't see him wanting to say, hey, I'd like to do it. Now, part of me says maybe he would. Maybe he'd like the chance to get it right. I don't know, but I think he'd rather just leave it alone, And then another name that was thrown around is James Marsden, who played Cyclops in the X-Men movies. He also played...
that's actually not a horrible.
No. He played Perry White's son in Superman Returns, but right now, if you have HBO, he's on Westworld, and I guess he's doing, really doing gangbusters with that show. I haven't seen it myself. I don't get HBO, but people said he does a bang up job on that show. And he's a good
actor.
Yeah, he's a good actor. I don't think the Cyclops movies were his best work, being Cyclops, but it was all right.
Not the most interesting character.
No, that's true, and he wasn't given a lot to do. But I don't think that speaks to his ability as an actor. And I think if he's getting all these raves in Westworld, I could see him in the role.
Have you ever seen him in The Loft?
No, I haven't. I have not seen.
Check that out on Netflix.
I'll have to look at that one. But those are the rumors floating around. We haven't heard anything more about Jon Stewart casting either. Tyrese Gibson has kind of laid off his lobbying for the part. I think Common recently said he'd love to do it. Who knows what they're going to do? I think we're still a few years out before we're going to get the movie.
Tilda Swinton as Jon Stewart.
Yeah. So who knows what's going to happen between now and then. We may never even get the movie. But I think if they're going to do a mid-credit scene or something like that, and they're going to allude to him getting a ring, I think they'll have a casting of one of the two of them soon. To me, the most telling thing will be waiting for Comic-Con, or they're going to keep it a secret if they do it at all, and it'll be one of those things I don't want to say it's an Easter egg because it wouldn't be an Easter egg, but it'll be hidden. But the movie's pretty much done filming at this point. So if he's going to be in the movie in any capacity, that's going to have to be during a reshoot if he's going to be with any of the characters from Justice League, or it's a scene by himself that they film after the fact before the movie comes out. We'll see. But like I said, there's no concrete news.
I will be sorely disappointed if it's the way they presented some of the characters in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I would too. I would rather see, I could see Abin Sur coming to Earth during the whole thing with Steppenwolf and dying in the battle, and I could see the ring flying off and not seeing anything more about it right away, and then in the mid-credits seeing the ring grab Hal and do something. I could totally see it that way. That'd be fine with me. Would I rather see Hal part of the formation of Justice League? Yeah, you're darn right I would. But I don't think we're getting that. I'm 100% positive we're not going to get that. But at any rate, we'll have to keep our ears peeled for... Our ears peeled. That doesn't sound right, does it? We'll have to keep our eyes wide open.
Unless you're Van Gogh.
Yeah, there you go. We'll have to keep our eyes open for real news other than the rumors. And then, I want to add one quick little thing. Ismat Cole was killed in the pages of The Death of Hawkman. It wasn't even in the Green Lantern book. So if you didn't see the article on the blog, they killed him off. And there's a new Green Lantern from Thanagar that... I'm assuming is going to be. I'm assuming the story is going to stick because Robert Venditti made a comment about the whole thing. Somebody asked him if this was legit, and he said, "Hey, it looks legitimate to me. This sounds,
Wait, when did he? Oh, so when in the timeline did this happen?
Just recently, and I went
before
back,
Green Lanterns.
Before,
okay. So after Green Lanterns, or Hal Jordan and the Green Lanterns 13.
Right, yeah, because he's been seen on the pages of that book. He hasn't been seen in a little while, but he was killed by Despero, and in issue 5 of this miniseries, and Qatar Hall, who is Hawkman's alter ego, his partner on the police force, Rain Krall, became a Green Lantern on the pages of that book. So it's interesting, but like I said, somebody asked whether this was in continuity to Robert Venditti on Twitter, and he said, "Hey, it looks conclusive to me." So I'm assuming Ismat Cole is dead. Now, he has regenerative powers. Maybe he's not dead. Maybe he's nearly dead. Who knows?
He's only half dead.
Yeah. It's a flesh wound.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen. But anyway, we'll be back in just a moment and wrap things up.
This is Salak, Green Lantern of Sector 1418, and you are receiving the podcast of Oa.
The podcast of Oa.
Myron, that brings episode 111 to a close. So we talked about the Green Lanterns, and just still a bumpy ride, pretty low. They've been around for a while now, and I'm still just not connecting to the characters. I think that's the main bottom line here. But we will continue to read and continue to express our opinions on the Green Lanterns and try to look for the positive, I guess, is at this point. And some interesting casting rumors you laid down for us. So, Myron, pretty successful episodes, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. And we'll be back in about a week or so to talk about some other books and get ourselves caught back up again. So thanks for listening, and we will see you very, very soon. And until next time, keep your ring charged and make every day your brightest day. Take care, everybody. The Podcast of Oa is the official podcast of the blog of Oa and a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. Share your comments and questions by calling the show's voicemail line at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. And Skype users can leave a voicemail on the show's account, Blog of Oa. Emails can be sent to greenlantern@stny.rr.com. And you can also find the Blog of Oa and the Podcast of Oa on Facebook and Google+. Green Lantern and other related characters are the copyrighted property of DC Comics Incorporated and are used without permission. The blog of OA and the podcast of OA are fan productions and do not claim any ownership over the Green Lantern or any other copyrighted properties.